name's Stephanie, and I'm coming to you from the Howell Nature Center. So first thing, I do want to apologize for starting a bit late. We had everything set up last night, and it was all working perfectly. Came in this morning, and of course, nothing's working. So we had to do a little resetting and a little switching, and so it took a few minutes. But we do have it functioning now, yay. So again, I do apologize for the lateness, but we are good to go now. So this morning, we are talking about creatures of the night in honor of Halloween. So for us, you might also see some adjustments happening during the program as we continue to tinker with things to make things look as good as possible. Anyway, so with Halloween coming up in a week, we like this time of year, we like to talk about some of those animals that come out at night, because that's a little spooky for us since we don't see real well at night. So those animals that come out at night, they kind of, they scare us a little bit, right? Because they can be out and stuff. Hey, Ryan, that light's not on. So that might be your problem. There we go. All right. So that's what we're going to be talking about in just a minute. So first of all, really quick, if you're wondering, these animals that we're going to be seeing, where do they come from? How do you get those? So here at the Howell Nature Center, we are actually Michigan's largest wildlife rehabilitation center. So we have a wildlife rehabilitation clinic that takes care of over 4,000 animals every single year. So everything that is in the wild in Michigan, from coyotes to owls to songbirds to ducks to mice, and kind of everything in between. If it lives in the wild in Michigan, we will generally take it for the most part and do our best to take care of it. Unfortunately, sometimes we can't fix the animal up quite enough for them to live in the wild on their own. And in that case, we try to find a home for them so they can live out their days as an education ambassador for their species. So some of those animals stay with us, some of those animals go to other places. So the animals that you're going to see today are animals that live in Michigan, so you might have seen them before. And they are also animals that have some sort of permanent injury, so they can't live in the wild on their own. So those are the animals we're going to see. Also, for most of these animals, they tend to come out at night, right? So maybe we don't know as much about them because we don't see them very much, all right? So that's what we're going to be talking about this morning. Okay, so most of the animals are going to come out of their carriers and you'll get to kind of see them up close. But this one is going to stay in his carrier because he's very small and kind of hard to hold on to, and I don't really want him wandering around the building. So because usually they're going to come out during the night, of course. Hey, bud, can you come out of your little pouch? Hey. You come out of your little pouch for a minute? Oh, there he is. Okay. So I'm going to bring this right up to, which camera am I? Okay, we're bringing it right up to our close-up camera here. So this is Vincent. And Vincent is a flying squirrel. Now, usually when I bring out flying squirrels on programs, most people are very surprised to find out that they do actually live in Michigan, but they do. We have quite a number of them here, but we just don't tend to see them very much. So one, they're nocturnal, and we usually tend to not be nocturnal unless we're in college, because in college, pretty much anything goes. Oh, we're going back in our pouch. So we'll let him go back in there for a minute, and maybe he'll come back out and visit us in a little bit there. So we don't see them. They're nocturnal, for one. For two, as you saw, maybe, he is very small. So usually when we think of squirrels, we tend to think of things like fox squirrels and gray squirrels, right? Those big squirrels we see running around on the ground. But these are pretty small. That is their fully grown adult size, actually. So they're pretty small little guys, so you don't see them much. And they're brown, and they tend to live up in the trees. I don't know about you, but when I'm walking around among the trees, I'm usually watching where I put my feet rather than watching up in the trees. And so you just don't really see them. They're up there in the holes in the trees and hanging out and sleeping during the day. So all that together means we just don't see them very much, unfortunately. And so a lot of people are really surprised to find out that they live here with us, but they do. I'm going to see if I can get him to come out for a second here. So give me a second. Anyway, so flying squirrels, of course, have their name flying squirrel, but they don't actually truly fly. So they're called that because they do kind of go through the air, but they don't actually fly. They actually glide. So I'll see if I can, there he is. You stick your little nose out? Since he's so comfy in here, maybe he'll just stay in here for us and we can take a look at his little face. There he is. There he is. Hi. So there's his little sleepy face. So he's just gonna kind of curl up in here, and that's fine if that's where he wants to be. But this way you can kind of see his little face, his little nose. Oh, no, it's too bright. I'm gonna go back to sleep. So anyway, flying squirrels don't actually fly, they actually glide. So they have this extra flap of skin. Let's see if I can get his tail to come out for a second here. They have this extra flap of skin, there's his little tail, that goes from their wrist to their ankle on each side of their body. And that is called a patagium. And what that is just this nice long flap of skin, nice and thick, with some fur on it. And they spread that out when they jump off a tree branch, and that slows down their fall rate. And so they're able instead to glide instead of just falling. And they can usually glide at least half the length of a football field, sometimes more. So they can get a pretty good glide going if they can. You can see his tail here. His tail is also very flat. You can see the tail is very flat here. So that is going to help them glide as well because they have that nice flat surface. He is really wanting to stay in his little pouch, which is fine. If that's what he wants to do, then that's okay. We'll just kind of hold on to his little pouch here. So Vincent is here because unfortunately, sometimes people try to keep wild animals as pets. And we always discourage that. Wild animals don't make good pets. They can bring in disease and parasites, unfortunately. They can act wild and maybe bite or scratch. And veterinarians won't take care of them for you because in Michigan, it's illegal to have a Michigan native wild animal as a pet. And so veterinarians won't help you. They won't give you medical care. And so it's just not a good idea. But unfortunately, someone tried to keep Vincent as a pet, along with some other flying squirrels. And he got in trouble, of course, when someone turned him in and he lost his flying squirrels. But because they really didn't know how to live on their own, we couldn't let them go. So the squirrels ended up at facilities like ours because then they could have a long, happy life just being out here with people helping them. So that's why we have Vincent. That's why he lives with us, is just because he doesn't really know how to live on his own. He doesn't know how to find his own food. He doesn't know anything about potential predators that could eat him. And he's not afraid of humans. And wild animals' best chance of survival is to stay away from us. So it's just better if he lives here where we can keep him safe. Oh, are we going to come back out again? A little bit? Nope, just poop. He's just poking his head out saying, nope, still too bright. Still too much light. That's okay. Because flying squirrels, like some other nocturnal animals, have really, really big eyes. So the bigger your eyes are, the more light they can take in, and the better you can see at night. But it does mean that during the day, it's kind of bright for them. And so sometimes they just don't want to face the brightness. And so he's going to want to just stay in his pouch and sleep. And that's okay. That is his choice. We don't force our animals to do this. We don't force them to do programs with us. It's always their choice to decide if they want to participate or not. And so today he is choosing to sleep, which is, again, totally his choice. So out in the wild, they would eat things like nuts, fruits, seeds, grains, and occasionally bugs or bird eggs. So they're not completely herbivores. They are more omnivores. So they will eat other animals sometimes. So that does happen occasionally. All right. So if you do have any questions at any point, please go ahead and type those into the Q&A part of your Zoom window. Ryan, who is kind of our host today, he will read those questions off to me and I will do my best to answer them. So you are certainly welcome to type that in at any point. I will be answering the questions after I talk about the animal. Whoop, we poked our head out again. We poked our head out. There we go. Say hello to the audience. See, look how cute he is. But again, these do not make good pets. So even though they're adorable, they're not a good pet at all. So don't get any ideas. All right, so please go ahead and type in any of those questions that you have. Are you coming back out again? And I'm going to put him back to his little nap and take out my next animal. While you're thinking if you have any questions. There you go, bud. You go back in your little pouch and go back to sleep. All right. So do we have any questions? No, that's okay. No worries. If you think of any, you can type them in at any time. Just figure I will be answering them at the end of talking about an animal. So I might not get to your question immediately, but Ryan will be reading those questions off to me. So we will get those. All right, I'm gonna set you over here. Okay, so we're gonna switch gears a little bit here to a different type of animal. Actually, let's do this. Here we go. Okay, are you ready to come out and say hi? Yeah, someone's excited. There you go. Good job, buddy. Okay, here we are. So this is Smokey. And as you might expect, seeing that this is a program about nocturnal animals that come out at night, we have an owl, right? Owls are pretty famous for coming out at night. So this is an eastern screech owl, and his name is Smokey. And a lot of times when people see Smokey, they say, oh, look, it's a baby owl. But he actually is not a baby. He is not a baby owl. He is actually fully grown adult screech owl. So yes, this is as big as they get. That's it. So not real large, but even though they're on the smaller side, they are definitely still a predator. So this is an animal that is going to be eating other animals for food. They don't eat any plant material unless it's inside their prey. They're not going to eat things like bird seed or seeds or fruit or anything like that. So as you might guess from his size, certainly he's not going to be eating rabbits. That's going to be way too big. So in the wild, he would eat things like mice or small rodents like that. He might eat some insects too, like a moth, kind of a insect that he might eat, as well as potentially bats as well. So they will eat kind of a variety, but usually animals that tend to be coming out more at night, as you might expect. So why does Smokey live with us? Well, unfortunately, Smokey, similar to Vincent, was also kept as an illegal pet. So when you do that with birds that live here in the United States, keeping a bird from the US here as a pet is actually against federal law. So other animals, it's various different states have different laws, but in birds, in that case, it's the whole country because it's one federal law. So it's kind of more serious. So you really do not want to be keeping a wild bird as a pet. Just don't do it. Not a good idea. So I'm going to take just a quick aside because it sounds like we have a question about the flying squirrels. So I'm going to just answer that real quick.
What does it mean when you hear an owl hoot at night?
What does it mean when you hear an owl hoot at night? So this is an owl question. All right. So it can mean a few different things when you hear an owl hoot at night. One very common thing that it is that it's marking their territory. So owls tend to have like a hunting area that they live in and that they hunt in, and they kind of claim that as theirs. And the territory will depend on how much prey and how much areas for living there are. So you might have a forest with lots of prey and lots of areas to hang out in, and then you might have a smaller territory. Or you might have an area that doesn't have as much prey, maybe doesn't have as many trees to hang out in, then they might need a bigger territory in that case. But they will often then hoot to tell other owls, hey, this is my space. I'm here, I claim this. And if you come in, we might have to fight about it. Because the thing is, animals don't want to fight with each other. They really don't. Because it takes a lot of energy. They could get hurt. And if they get hurt, maybe they can't get food. So they don't really want to fight. So that's why you tend to see animals, they have a lot of rituals they go through before they actually start fighting. They might make a lot of different noises. They might tear grass up or do like different movements. But you tend to see that a lot because they don't really want to fight with each other. So the noise that they're making is sort of a, hey, I don't want to fight with you, but if you get too close, I will. And so hopefully that makes other owls stay away. Another reason, this is especially during the mating and breeding season, which is going to start usually in late winter, early spring, and go through the summer. So another reason would be to talk to each other as they're talking to their mate. So one bird may be sitting on the eggs or sitting with the babies, and the other bird is out hunting. And so they might call as they're coming back, like, hey, it's me. I'm bringing food back. You know, don't attack me because it's your mate. So that's another reason. But that's probably not the reason you might hear them right now. This time of year, right now, it's probably going to be a territory call. Right, Smoke? You feel better now? Okay. Yeah, you do. All right, that's good. So Smokey is just, he's talking because he's just wanting to make sure that he doesn't get eaten. So he's just kind of talking to me like, okay. So he just kind of wants to reassure himself that it's all good because as you see, they're small. And so they have some predators out there that will try to eat him. And he's just wanting to make sure that I'm not one of those predators. So we're just kind of reaffirming that everything's okay. So now you see he's fine. Just needed to double check. So you'll notice about Smokey that he looks a lot like a tree, right? So he looks a lot like tree bark. And that is not an accident. So for owls, especially for small owls like this, their best defense is actually to hide. So they want to just hide in a hole in a tree. And if they turn their back to the hole or if they close their eyes, you're not really going to see them. They're going to blend right in with the tree bark and they're just not going to be noticeable. And so that's what he's going to prefer to do, is to hide. That's what they like to do. That makes them feel safe. Now, as you get to bigger owls, you'll also see a lot of camouflage with them as well. And that's going to be because they want to hide during the day so their prey doesn't know where they are. So if they have a particular tree they like to hang out in and all their prey knows, hey, that's the owl tree, we need to stay away, well, then the owl might have a hard time finding prey. So they would rather hide during the day so nobody knows they're there, so that when they come out at night to hunt, they can sneak attack. So no one knows where they are during the night either. So you tend to see the camouflage with the owls. They tend to just be very good at hiding, especially in a tree. So Smokey is 7 years old and has been with us for most of his life, ever since he was brought in by the person who had him. But unfortunately, when a young bird is raised by humans, they don't learn the skills they need to survive. So their parents will teach them things. They will teach them how to hunt and how to catch prey and how to just be an owl or be another type of bird. But humans aren't very good at being birds, so we can't really teach them how to be a bird. And so unfortunately, they just get very confused and they aren't able to survive. So that's why Smokey lives here with us. Now, one thing I want you to notice about Smokey is these cool things on his head, right? They look like little horns. Sometimes people call those ears. They look kind of like ears, but they're not actually ears or horns. They're actually a type of feather called a plumicorn. So it's a special type of feather called a plumicorn, which I think is kind of a fun name, kind of a fun word to say. And what they do is, number one, they do help with camouflage. So they help break up the owl's silhouette, help them blend in with the bark. The other thing that they do is they are used for communication. So how the owl is holding its plumicorns kind of tells other owls, or in this case, it tells us what the owl's kind of thinking, how they're feeling. It tells us if the owl is uncomfortable, if they're scared, if they're relaxed. The positioning tells us those things about how the owl is feeling. And so it's very useful for us to be kind of watching those to get an idea of what the owl might be thinking, which might give us an idea of what the owl might do next, which is good. Yeah, we can bring him in close. All right, so we're going to bring him in a little bit close to this camera here so you can get a good look at him. Not sure what he's looking at right now, but he's checking something out. And he's also demonstrating one thing owls are pretty famous for, which is, of course, their ability to turn their head. So, of course, now that he's up by the camera, he's not looking at the camera because there we go. Can you look at the camera, Smoke? Can you look over here? There you go. So owls can turn their head pretty far, but not a complete circle. They can turn their head about 270 degrees. All right, so I'm going to bring him back away. Here we go. Yeah, I know. That was kind of cool, huh? So owls can turn their heads 270 degrees. And why do they do that? Why can they do that? Most animals can't do anything like that. Well, it's because one reason is because they can't move their eyes. So if you take a second to hold your head still and move your eyes around, right? You can move them left to right, up and down, all those good things. Owls can't do that. Their eyes are so large that they're actually fixed in their head with a ring of bone. And so our eyes are held in with muscles, not bones. Some of the strongest muscles in our body, actually. But if their eyes were held in with muscle, they'd probably just fall out. not good. So they're held in with bone, and that just means they can't move them. So they have to turn their whole head. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to see everywhere around them because they can't move their eyes. So that's a big reason for why they do that. Right, Smoke? All right, so are there any questions? Nope. All right. So again, you can go ahead and type those questions in at any point if you want, and I will do my best to get to those. All right, bud, we're gonna go back in our carrier, okay? There you go. Good job, buddy. Okay. There he goes. All right, so as I'm kind of transitioning a little bit here, I just want to mention something. So we are doing events here at the Nature Center for the fall. So I know obviously things are a little weird right now in a lot of ways, but we are trying to do some normal things right now for the community. So we are doing some fall events, and we will be doing some Christmas events as well. So we are doing some family activities on the weekends. So Friday nights, we're doing some animal presentations and some other activities, as well as a campfire. We're also doing some glow zip. So our zip lines, and you zip line in the dark with some glowing glow sticks and stuff. That's just pretty fun. So that's a fun thing to be doing. And then, so we'll be doing that up until Thanksgiving. And then we'll be coming into Christmas. So we'll be doing some Christmas tree sales and some other Christmas events. So if you're trying to just find some normalcy, we are doing our best to do as many things outside as we can for safety. And if it's indoors, we are requiring masks. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, you can check out our websites or you can follow us on social media. All right, so we're gonna go over here now with our next friend. I'm gonna turn him, here we go, bud. Oh, there we go. All right, you coming out? And he'll just come on out since he wants some banana. Would you like some banana? Hey, yeah, I know, it's a cool leaf. Can you have some banana instead? Hey, yes, hello. There we go. All right, we'll just move this down here so we can see him really good. There we go. All right. So this, we're gonna move the camera, cool. So this is Jack Jack, and Jack Jack is an opossum, which hopefully most of you recognized. Hi, yes, there's more banana. There you go. So you're gonna watch him chewing. So first, as you watch him chew, keep in mind this is why your mom always told you to chew with your mouth closed, because this is what you look and sound like when you chew with your mouth open. So kind of not the best table manners on the opossums here. Do you want some more banana, Jack Jack? There you go. So one thing you might notice about Jack Jack as he moves around a little bit is that he is missing his tail. And he has no tail. And that's actually the reason why he lives here. Now, how in the world did that happen? Well, opossums are marsupials, and that means that the females have a pouch for their babies. So their babies are born after only 13 days. So they're very tiny. They're about the size of a jelly bean, and they're born, and they crawl up their mom's fur after being born and climb into her pouch, which as a marsupial, she has a pouch. And then they grow up in the pouch for a little while, usually a couple of months. And so they'll grow up in the pouch and live in the pouch. And then they ride around on her back when they can't all fit in the pouch anymore, because opossums can have up to 13 babies at a time. And so, we're checking out the camera there. And so now we're checking out the leaves. That's cool. You do that. And so they don't all fit in her pouch after a while, and then they will ride around on her back, and then eventually they'll kind of walk away and start their own life as an opossum. So Jack was in his mom's pouch, and unfortunately, when his mom was hit by a car, she didn't survive. And unfortunately, Jack, as well as his brother Dash, both were injured in the same accident. So they did survive, but because of some of the damage they got, Jack is missing his tail, and Dash is missing a lot of his tail. And tails are very important to opossums. They use them kind of like a fifth leg. They grab with them. It helps them balance. It helps them climb. They also carry things in their tail. So their tails are very, very important. And if they don't have them or they can't use them very well, they probably won't survive. So that's why Jack ended up staying here with us. Now, I know there's sort of this story or idea out there about opossums actually hanging upside down by their tails, but that's actually a myth. That's not something that really happens in real life. And so they don't hang upside down by them, but they are still very important. So an opossum with no tail is probably not going to do very well. So Jack is about 1.5 years now. And unfortunately, opossums do not live very long. So in the wild, it's usually about 1 year, 1.5 years. In human care, it's usually somewhere around 3 to 4 years. So unfortunately, they just do not live very long. And so I wish that they did, because they're pretty awesome, but unfortunately, that is not the case. So why are opossums so awesome? Well, there's a couple things. So first, like I said, they're a marsupial, and they're the only marsupial that we have here in North America. So they're very unique. Another reason is that they actually have a high resistance to certain types of snake venom. So if, for example, Jack was bitten by a rattlesnake, he would not get sick from that. That would not endanger him the way it would us, because they have something in their blood that neutralizes the venom. So they're actually studying opossums right now, trying to figure out how they do that in order to see if we can help people using their methodology. You all right there, bud? So opossums don't see very well, as you might have noticed as he's moving around. They don't see very well. They actually use their nose to find out what's going on around. As you have noticed, no doubt, he's sniffing like crazy, just using that nose constantly to find out what's happening. And that's what they do. So their eyesight isn't great, but that's okay, because they're coming out mostly at night anyway. So they don't really need their eyes that much if they have other senses instead. So like I said, their nose is very, very acute. They have good hearing, and they also have those whiskers. So those whiskers also tell them things about how what's going on in their world. The table's a little wobbly, so he's a little not sure what's going on. You're all right, buddy. You're okay. So another really cool thing about opossums is that they are highly, highly resistant to rabies. In fact, they pretty much just don't get rabies. And so sometimes people will see opossums out during the day, especially in the winter, and they'll get nervous because they think, oh, it's out during the day, it must be sick, it must have rabies, and so they'll get scared. But the reason that they're coming out during the day in the winter is because opossums are not very well adapted to cold. So during the day, it's warmer in the winter, and so it's less likely that they'll get something like frostbite if they come out during the day in the wintertime, because they don't hibernate. So if you see an opossum out during the day, especially in the winter, it's okay. It's probably just hungry and looking for food. It's not going to make you sick. It's okay. So that's another really cool thing about them. And then last but not least, They eat lots and lots of ticks. So one opossum is estimated to eat about 5,000 ticks in a year. So oh, we're gonna poop right on camera. Cool, there we go. All right, good job, Jack Jack. Sometimes you just gotta go. What can you do?
Nice close-up shot.
Nice close-up shot of the poop. Well, sometimes you just gotta go. So, that's just the way it is. What are you doing, buddy? You're silly. So, ooh, that's a lovely smell too. So actually, Ryan's gonna move away. Like, I can't stand that smell anymore. That's all right. We'll put Jack Jack back. It's okay. All right, here you go, buddy. Come on. Whoop. There you go. In you go. Come on, buddy. There we go. All right. Oh, that's fun. Okay. You never know with animals. You never know what they might do, might not do. They're always interesting. But anyway, as I was saying, we'll just kind of fold this up here. As I was saying, areas with more opossums actually tend to have less Lyme disease because of them eating those ticks. So it's actually really helpful to have opossums around because they're just eating those ticks for us. All right, so do we have any questions?
Yeah, one question was, do they hibernate?
Yes. Nope, they do not hibernate. Actually, not very many animals do hibernate. So a lot of course, the reptiles and amphibians, they will hibernate, of course, as you might guess. But for mammals, it's not very many that actually do. It's actually not very common. So just fold that up there. It's only a few that do here in Michigan. So they do not hibernate. All right. Well, I don't know how we're going to top that, but I do have one more animal to show you. So let me get him out a second here. He is pretty awesome. So maybe he'll be able to get past the poop thing. All right, here we go. Okay. All right. Hi, bud. Hi. You want to come out? Here we go. Up. Good bird. Hi. Here we go. See, here we go. All right. So this is a Yeti. And Yeti is a snowy owl, as you've probably kind of figured out. Yeti's kind of looking at all the things here. Like, what's going on? And actually, this is a little bit of a cheat because technically snowy owls actually come out during the day. So they are actually diurnal animals rather than nocturnal animals because usually they're found up in the Arctic. That's where they spend at least half the year, up in the Arctic. And up in the Arctic in the summer, there are certain times in the summer, in the middle of summer, where there isn't actually any night. The sun stays up for 24 hours a day. So of course, if you live up in the Arctic, you have to adjust to there not being any night. And so the owls who live up in the Arctic do tend to be coming out more during the day. But he's still an owl, so he still has owl adaptations for being awake at night. So we're still going to talk about that. So we talked about those large eyes like Smokey had. You can see the large eyes, of course, that Yeti has as well. And the large eyes help you see better in the dark by taking in more light. So we talked about that. Now, as you look at Yeti's eyes, you might notice that one of them looks a little strange, right? His left eye just looks kind of weird. Yep. That's because his left eye is damaged. So unfortunately, He had an injury happen to his eye. How that happened, who knows? But something happened to his eye and it was injured. And so unfortunately, he is blind in that eye. And so what happened was someone over in Flushing, Michigan, was just hanging out and saw this owl in her yard and was like, oh, cool, this is so awesome, right? Because that's what anyone would say. And, was taking pictures. And then she was like, well, this doesn't look right, because the owl was just sitting there. It wasn't trying to fly away. It wasn't moving. It was just sitting in the grass. And so she started to get concerned, rightfully so, and called a friend. And they were actually able to capture Yeti and put him in a carrier pretty easily, which is not a good sign. And then they saw that his eye looked very bad. And so he ended up coming here. And of course, we took care of him. And he was very thin, well on his way to starving to death. So of course, we could give him food. And we took him to the vet to look at his eye. And they said, yeah, there's nothing we can do. We can't fix it. It's not repairable. It's not repairable in humans either. So unfortunately, he just is not able to survive on his own. He doesn't have the depth perception to judge distance very well. And he also is going to miss a lot of prey because he's only seeing kind of half the world at any one time. So since he already tried and didn't make it on his own, we decided it would be best for him to stay with us. And so that's why he's here. We're estimating that he's almost 4 years old at this point. So he'll be 4 at the beginning of next year, is what we're estimating based on his coloration. So for snowy owls, they are one of the few birds of prey where the boys and the girls don't look the same. So for most birds of prey, they look the same. But with snowy owls, the females are white with a lot of black stripes and spots on them, and they stay that way their whole life. For the males, they start out white with a lot of spots and stripes, but then they get lighter over time and eventually become just about purely white. So Yeti has already gotten much lighter since he arrived with us 3 years ago. But he probably will continue to get even lighter until he's almost purely white, probably in the next few years. One other thing that owls have to help them be active at night is that they can fly without making any noise. They are silent flyers. So they have very special feathers that help them fly without making noise. So they're kind of like sneaky ninjas. They can just sneak up on their prey, and their prey never hears them coming. So pretty cool. It's actually a little bit eerie sometimes to have an owl be flying and you just don't hear them because they're so very quiet. Now, one last cool thing about snowy owls, if you look, he's got some pretty cool feet happening here. So he's got lots and lots of feathers on those feet, right? We see those. They almost look like they're furry, but they're not fur, it's feathers. But he's got all that fur on his feet because up in the Arctic, so we'll switch cameras, see if you can get a good close-up look at those feet. I call those his Muppet feet. Up in the Arctic, there aren't any trees. So you can only really just sit on the ground or on a rock. And so you really need to keep your feet warm. Otherwise, if your feet freeze, you're in trouble because that's how you're going to catch your food. So they've got to have lots and lots of feathers on their feet so that they can keep their feet warm no matter what's happening. Because up in the Arctic, of course, it can get very cold. But these birds can handle up to about -50 degrees. So they have about 1 inch of feathers. So they do stay nice and warm during the winter. So generally what happens is the snowies will come down out of the Arctic, down into Canada and the US in the wintertime. So they'll be coming down looking for food, hanging out here in the winter because there's more food availability down here than out in the up in the Arctic. So a lot of times the young ones that maybe don't have a territory yet will come down, and we'll start to see them in Michigan in probably another month or so. So kind of be looking for that. They like open areas. So they often like places like airports and beaches because they like those open areas. Because again, up in the Arctic, there aren't any trees. So they tend to be a little bit confused about trees at first. So they do like those open, flat areas best most of the time. So that's where you will tend to see them. And you do tend to start to see them in about mid-November. So be looking for those because we do get snowies every year. And then usually in the spring, they'll head back up to the Arctic for the summer, for the breeding season, where they'll have their babies. So Yeti would have come down into Michigan and had his accident here and ended up having to stay here with us. So we don't worry about them in the winter the way we worry about some of our other animals, but we do worry about them in the summer. So in the summer, he and his snowy roommate get a pool and they get a sprinkler so they can stay nice and cool by staying nice and wet. So that's what we tend to do to help them out in the summer. And if it just gets to be too bad, we pull them into the air conditioning so that they don't get too hot. All right, so do we have any questions? Nope. All right, well, in that case, thank you for joining us. Again, I do apologize for the late start there with our technical difficulties, but I hope that you did enjoy the program when we did get started. Have a happy and safe Halloween next weekend. And again, if you are interested in any of our programs or events here at the Nature Center, looking for just something to do since there's just not a lot happening right now, please check out our website or check us out on social media, and we hope to see you around.